Welcome to the Four Fires Podcast, where we talk about winning in all four of the essential areas of life.
Well, welcome to the Four Fires Podcast. This is Jeff Rice. I'm here with my good friend Masun Womble, and we're going to talk a little bit about the Four Fires and how it plays out practically in his life on a daily or a weekly basis. But before we get into that, I want to give a quick shout out to episode 5. If you guys haven't listened to that episode of the Four Fires Podcast, it's a group discussion with 4 really cool guys talking about how the Four Fires applies to their life and why it's so important. And so if you haven't checked that one out, go give it a listen. And with that being said, let's get right into it. So Masun, I'm going to have you introduce yourself, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, my name is Masun Womble. I'm working with Savannah Logistics Group over their trucking operations. I live in Savannah, Georgia. I love motorcycles and long walks on the beach, as people say these days. And yeah.
Cool. So tell me about your Four Fires journey. Like when you got introduced to it, maybe some like aha moments or like the biggest areas where you were just like, oh my gosh. And so just give me like a brief overview of what that journey's looked like up until this point.
Yeah. So I went to Point University, studied accounting, and met Dr. Kemper there, who I believe is the creator of the Four Fires philosophy, the Four Fires framework.
Yep.
We just stayed good friends even after he decided to, take on lead and take that to the next level. And so as I graduated college about almost a year ago. Wow. About a year ago, me and him stayed in touch, and he decided that he was going to come down to Savannah, come work with our company some. And through that, I was introduced to the Four Fires philosophy, this idea that there's men out there who are striving to be something more, and that is a 4-dimensional life, even if they haven't quite named it. And so that's a great relationship with God, great relationship with family and friends, being able to take care of your body well, and having a craft, something that you're proud to do, proud to make, something that God's gifted you with. And so that idea, I think, really just encapsulates what a whole man, what someone who has purpose looks like. So
right.
That's where Dr. Kemper introduced me to that. And just since then, I've been intrigued by the idea. Not always succeeded, not always excelled at it, but always like to think I've striven for it since then. So
yeah, I'm right there with you on not crushing it all the time, and I feel like nobody is. It's like you don't ever arrive, and then you're like, oh, I'm good. I'm 4-dimensional. I'm good the rest of my life. That's not at all how it works, which is the fun part about it. It's a journey rather than a destination. So that's cool. So one of the main questions that I wanted to ask on this podcast was, I work at Lead Advisors, for those of you who don't know. So I work for Alan Kemper, the creator of the Four Fires philosophy. And so my job, I work here at Lead, and my job is the Four Fires. Like I do work in the Four Fires. I'm thinking in the space like all the time. Alan and I talk almost every day about the Four Fires. So I live this. So the question that I want to ask is, it plays out in my life because that's my job and that's what I live. But how do the Four Fires play out practically in your daily life, at a logistics company where things are, I can't imagine how crazy and hectic. I've heard that you get phone calls at like midnight all the time. And so like, I can't imagine that, how crazy it is. So like, how does it play out, and how is it like incredibly hard to make sure you're hitting all 4 fires? Maybe not on a daily basis, but at least a weekly basis. So yeah, I mean, how does it play out in your life?
Yeah, and looking at the dispatchers now, those are guys who do have to take those phone calls, something I don't have to do as much anymore.
Okay.
And I can see how it can be an overwhelming. Our professional fire can really just be our life. Our professional fire is our fire, and that's kind of all we know. But being someone who is trying to be intentional about creating boundaries between me and work, having that time for family, having that time to build my relationship with God and have community, go to the gym, work out, those kinds of things. It's a constant juggling act. You can't you can't predict your week. You can try to plan, but you can't necessarily plan everything that's going to come up, especially in logistics. Uh, there's part of me that craves that wonderful 8 to 5 where you're done at 5 and you start at 8.
Yeah.
But also, that's also just not life either, to an extent. When you truly have a craft or something that you're wanting to invest in and be great in. So, yeah, I mean, what it looks like is you win some days and you lose some days. I guess that's the best way to put it.
Yeah.
You over here, you're working out and you're going to the gym to look good for your girlfriend, and you work your hours like you're supposed to, but then you've worked out and you're looking good, and you're taking care of your job, but you forgot to spend time with her. So things like that where it's you're having to balance your time, you're having to figure out what is the most important today, because what was important yesterday might not be as important today. What was important last week might not be able to be as important this week. And so I'd just say a constant juggling act. And that's why I feel like there's always something chasing, right? So work on 2 fires today, you got to chase the next 2 fires tomorrow.
Yep.
And just so on. So it's fun, but it's quite aggravating as well when you hold yourself to that standard.
Right. Yeah. That's why I like to say, like hitting all 4 fires at least on a weekly basis, because sometimes it's just like, man, it might be Monday through Friday. You're just like, man, it is like 90 to 100% professional fire. You're just like crushing it all week. But just doing little things daily, or like I said, at least weekly, I think is the key to actually living into the 4-dimensional life. Because Mason, you've been through the 30-day ruck, so you know what I'm talking about. But like the 30-day ruck is super intense, where you're doing all of these tasks. It's on a weekly basis, but there's so many tasks. You need to be hitting 1 or 2 of the tasks in each of the 4 fires daily. But like reality is that you're not gonna crush all 4 fires every day. Like you can get in a routine where like you go work out in the morning, you work all day, and then you hang out with your family and your friends at night, and then have a quiet time either in the morning or at night. So like you're kind of hitting all 4, but at least for me personally, the reality is that like I'm not going to crush all 4 of them every single day. But yeah, just the idea of, like you said, picking a certain fire sometimes, and then the next day picking another fire or 2. It's just like I think it's a cool and realistic way to look at it, because at least for me, I kind of hold myself to a high standard with a lot of things in life. And so I can get down on myself when I'm like, oh my gosh, like I hadn't, I'm not crushing all 4. So I can get really down on myself. But just the reality of you're not going to crush them all at the same time daily. So that's just a cool thing to realize and kind of give yourself some grace, because the main goal is longevity, right? Like you and I have done the 30-day ruck together, and it's just like super intense for 30 days. But I would say that anybody can do something for 30 days, but can you do it for 30 years? So looking at the 4 fires, when you were first introduced to the 4 fires, you said that was about a year ago?
Yeah, pretty close to that.
Okay. So you and I were about the same. What was the fire or fires that when you first heard about the 4 fires philosophy that you were just like, oh my gosh, I definitely have to work on that one?
Man, honestly, the physical fires one I've always struggled with. I played baseball in high school, so it kind of came natural then. But since then, just having good habits of eating and working out and those kinds of things have never been a part of my life ever. And so that's one I've always wanted to conquer, kind of one of those things, that one thing you really can't ever get a grasp of. And I feel like it's kind of almost like the ruck, right? Like I can have these really intense 2 weeks, and I'm like, man, I feel good. I feel like I'm looking good.
Yeah.
And then, I eat one Twinkie and it's over with. It's the next 3, 4, 5 weeks until I look in the mirror and I'm like, holy cow, your neck is disappearing. It's trying to figure out what does it look like to, I guess looking back, that was the fire that initially hit me. And so even just now, still figuring that out, what it looks like to do that long term, consistently, healthily.
Yeah.
And even and with my spiritual fire, it's been cool too, because my spiritual fire back then was, um, I mean, I wouldn't say it was necessarily in a bad spot, just not a lot of foundation, I guess you could say. A lot more questions than answers, and I think that's how it is a lot of times, anyways. But um, just feeling a good, with intentionality of, even if it's a devotional every day and that's it. We talked about how we have this really high standard for ourselves. So it's like, if I read 3 verses in devotional today, I was going to say I'm still going to hell. I don't know how you feel about me saying that over the podcast, but
No.
Jokingly, of course.
Yeah. What if you
so
only read 3 verses? Is that what you're saying?
yeah, and the reason
Right.
being, just because, I mean, going to a Bible college and stuff like that, you learn how to interpret scripture in this certain context, and all
Right.
these different things are important, but also can suck the life, it can suck the living God out of you. You know what I mean? Because you're not allowing, you feel like you have to do these certain things for God to show up.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, at least from my experience, I just have to be careful that the things that I do, like you said, reading my Bible or praying or giving to the church, or like the things that I do, I have to be careful that they don't become a religious thing, that I'm only doing it because I know that I'm just supposed to do that as a believer, but make sure that I'm focusing on, it's supposed to be an intimate, personal relationship with Jesus. Like, reading your Bible is not going to make you go to heaven, but reading your Bible and giving your heart to God and allowing His word to speak to you, and that it's more about the relationship than it is the religious part. So you said the physical fire was one that did you say struggled with, or it was just
Yeah.
something that, okay, so when you were introduced a year ago, do you feel like the physical fire is still something that you're struggling with, or do you feel like you've kind of gotten a handle on it?
Yeah, I've gotten a decent handle on it. It's I let my week be where I'm just intentional about what I eat, what I do, making sure I'm doing something, and then really just trying not to binge on the weekends, but eating what I want to,
Right.
doing what I want to.
Yeah.
That's kind of the season of life I'm in. Being 22 years old, it's a little bit easier to do that. But I do know, as I get older and as metabolism slows down, of course, like, it's going to take consistent habits and routines and intentionality to look the way I want to feel the way I want to. So I'm really wanting to move more in that direction, and I might even take a little bit of coaching, some little bit of outside help if I've never been taught it before. Might be probably what that comes down to.
So my wife, Rachel, she actually is now a certified nutrition coach, and so I get the benefit of hearing. She doesn't coach me because I don't feel like I would want to be coached by my wife, but that's just my opinion. I don't know if other people out there would agree with me, but I do really enjoy asking Rachel questions with stuff that I really don't know anything about. Like, I didn't know that not drinking water wrecks your metabolism. And so I'm still not as good as I should be, but like, I'm trying to drink more water throughout the day. But when I'm sitting at my desk all day, I don't feel like I need to drink water because I don't feel thirsty, because I'm not sweating, I'm not doing anything. But in reality, I'm probably dehydrated. So just getting advice from other people, even if you're like pretty solid in one of the areas, one of the 4 fires, I think it's you can always learn something from somebody else. And so, yeah, I'm the same way. And recently you said that you've been trying to be mindful of what you're eating. Recently for me, I've put on just a couple pounds. I can feel it. And it's because I don't know. In the last month, I haven't been doing super good. I've only been going to the gym probably 2 or 3 times a week, which isn't sufficient, and eating, kind of okay, but nothing great. And so I'm trying to be more mindful of it, because one thing for sure is you can't out exercise poor diet. So even if I was exercising 7 times a week, if you're eating terribly, then you're not going to see the results that you're looking for. So I feel like getting a grip on how you eat is more important than how you exercise first. They're both, you have to have both, I would argue, but how you eat is number one.
Yeah, no, I just want to go back to what you, those of you out there who also think, like myself, that 2 to 3 times a week is still pretty solid. It's okay to think that that's pretty solid.
Sorry if I offended anyone there. Well, here's the thing. So Rachel is like a 6-day-a-week girl, and so that's probably why I feel like, oh my gosh, my wife is kicking my butt. So
yeah, if I go 4 times a week, I'm feeling pretty good. If I go 4 times a week and run a little bit, I'm feeling pretty solid.
Yeah. So we talked about the physical fire and how it. You said it was one of the most difficult ones. Are there any other of the 3 that you felt like were difficult, or were they all about
professional fire? Actually, yeah, now I'm thinking back to it. And kind of when I was meeting first with Kemper, my professional fire was at a pretty good spot. I knew what to expect from work every day. I knew what my job was. I felt like I was really great at my job. That was a really cool and fun place to be at. Since then, I've been given a lot more responsibility, and I feel like I've been taken out of my. Honestly, I feel like I've been taken out of my craft a little bit. Now that I'm thinking back to that time, originally I was load planning, which is something I did when I was in high school. So that's, you're calling brokers and negotiating rates, and you're kind of building these relationships with these customers that you're trying to take care of, but you're also kind of trying to hurt their feelings by how much money you can get out of them and those kinds of things. So, a mix of relational negotiation, which is, if anyone knows me, that's fun for me.
Yeah.
So, and that was something I was really good at. And now that I've kind of come into I've come into a managerial role, something where I'm holding people accountable. I'm supposed to be holding people accountable. Supposed to kind of keep my thumbs on operations and just do things that really intentional things like those things, keeping up, tracking, everything from reviews to those kinds of things. Honestly, I mean, those are things I don't even think of with our companies. My dad started the company about right around 6.5 years ago, almost, or approaching 6.5 years. So it's family run. He's grinded it out and learned everything there is to know about logistics. So he's built it into something that is really just quite incredible. And so kind of following behind him and trying to take in everything that he's learned over the last 25 years into my 22-year-old self as much as I can, while also learning how to manage and even mentor the people who are under me, almost seems and sounds impossible sometimes, especially during that time period where, I felt like I was just tossed in, and everyone at the time was doing the best they could. I was doing the best I could. My dad was doing the best he could. My manager was doing the best they could. That's just what happens with fast growth and family businesses.
Mm-hmm.
But now, approaching a year from when I got here, and probably approaching about 9 months from when I first started managing, I would say I am quite shocked at where I am currently. By no means am I perfect, and I can write down about 20 other things I'd love to be good at tomorrow, but it will probably take me 20 years. It's everything from, conflict and crucial conversations are something that's just not a part of my. Now, I remember just sweating thinking about calling a driver or calling a customer, and even just an honest conversation. It's not even mean, but just like accountable, right?
Yeah.
And so even now, that's pretty uncomfortable. But I've gotten to a point where I realize, honesty is kindness, and if it's making me uncomfortable, sometimes that makes it more the right thing to do, because it means I've probably been putting it off longer than I should have to have that conversation. So. Yeah, and then just my knowledge of the operation. I would say, like I said, early on, I was in a very comfortable spot, and just since then I've been pushed professionally. And even though I feel like I'm not in an arena that necessarily is tilted towards my craft, which I believe I can't really name it, but it's but it's those things that have to do with just people and conversation and relationships and
yeah. You said managerial, so managing people, I guess, would be part of your craft.
Well, and even that is, what's hard about me as a manager is that accountability piece. Naturally, I'm not big on the accountability piece because it's against my comfort zone. And like I said, I've become more comfortable with it, and I'm starting to actually enjoy it more. But I feel like it's because I've just been put in those spaces where I've had to have conversations, and I've had to do it wrong. I've gotten a chance to do it wrong over the last year. So I feel like I'm on the uphill on some things, learning how to do it right. Having confidence in just who I am as a person that allows me to be myself entirely when I'm having conversations with people, whether it be about accountability or attendance or whatever it might be. Just learning that where I am and who I am is enough, no matter what I'm doing, and that it's going to be enough for that situation and that scenario, even if it's not enough. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because it's going to make me enough when it counts.
Yeah.
It's kind of I look at it with, I think it's been a really cool season this last year, and even just looking forward that I'm becoming a person I'm really proud to have become, and there's a ton of other things I want to learn and do better at, and just be better at. That like I said, I can name you 20 to 30 to 40 things, but I'm very I'm able to be thankful and look back at where I was then and look at where I'm at now and be like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Now what's the next 5 years look like?
Yep.
And the next years I'm gonna have another 5 years, but kind of shooting off of that too. I don't know if you ever heard was it Matthew McConaughey, the hero speech?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that one.
You actually, you asked me who my biggest hero was that trip. You came hunting with me. And then I didn't have a good answer, and I still don't have a good answer. And I told you I was going to get you an answer, so that's on me. But then I asked you who your biggest hero was, and then you said it was you in 10 years. So I'll let you elaborate on that.
Yeah, well, and again, I can't take any credit for how cool that sounds, but McConaughey, if you guys aren't familiar, he had an Oscar Oscar's the acting one. So Oscar that he won a few years back, and he was just telling the story about this guy. He was young in his career, and this guy came up to him and he said, he asked him who his hero was, and he said, I don't know. You're gonna have to let me think on that one for a second. So guy came back the next day, asked him, gave some time. What do you think? Who do you think your hero is? And he said, you know what? It's me in 10 years. And so 10 years later, the same man comes back to Matthew and he asks him, so have you become your hero yet? And he said, not even close. That's the way he said it. He's very good at excitement. But so not even close. He said, so who's your hero now? He said, it's still me in 10 years. And he talks about how, every day we're striving, every day we're changing, every day we're chasing that better version of ourselves. And so I love Matthew McConaughey, so I'm wanting to say it exactly how he says it too, but I'm trying to say it. But so like just that idea that you think about who in your life is your hero, and it's kind of like trying to think of a four-dimensional man, and you just really can't. At least I can't think of anyone who is my hero who I want to be. Even to a large extent, I guess you could say, not because anyone hasn't done or lived a great life, but
right.
I just want to be different. I want to be my own person. I want to be unique. I want to stand out in my own way, not necessarily making the most money or being the the most known person or anything like that. But I want myself in 5 years and 10 years from now to be unlike any other 27-year-old, unlike any 32-year-old there is out there, period. And so, yeah, I guess that's how I would. I've gotten more comfortable and felt that answer more, especially recently than even I did, when we had that hunting trip a few months ago.
Yeah, for sure. Tell me about how your purpose fire plays out for you right now?
Yes, my purpose fire. I do a devotional, kind of off and on. Sometimes I'll forget to do it,
Right.
but I do. I enjoy them when I do them. I pray every morning. Specifically, when I'm in the car driving to work, it's about 30 to 45 minutes. So, I think I have a lot to be grateful for right now. So that's come with a lot of prayer, and I have a lot that I'm waiting on and trying to be patient with, especially in that arena, which has caused me to have to rely on God and trust in His timing for a few different things. And um, it's I'm not very good at no or wait.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not very good at two answers, and um, so this is a pretty cool season of it's a lot of trust, and it's a lot of intentionality, and it's a lot of thankfulness, kind of all in this season. And so all those things have just grown me a lot closer to God. I've way more conversations than I did with him, 2 or 3 months ago. Um, I have way more confidence in him, and because of him,
Yeah.
in myself, because I know that these other things in life that have happened or been confirmed are letting me know that I'm in the right spot.
Yeah.
Like it's you're like in bask in the blessings, kind of. And so what I've also been praying for is that God will help me to remember these blessings and to remember them when the low points come and when the heartache
Right.
comes. And
Yeah.
so we'll see that when we get there. But right now it's I'm basking in blessing and giving a lot of gratitude.
Yeah, you actually just said the word that I wrote down, of gratitude. Remembering all the things that God has blessed you with and blessed us with, because it's easy for me, at least, to have something I'm working towards, and then whether it's something at work or something physically or something I want to buy, and like you get that thing, whatever it is, and then you're like, that didn't satisfy me. I need to find something else, and then you just like keep moving. You're always, which is good. We always need to be growing and striving for something. But if you don't take time, like I try to slow down and just like be in my house and just like look over at Rachel and say, like, I'm very happy right now. Just like sitting in, we don't live in some mansion, but we're sitting in our house on the couch watching TV, and I'm with my best friend. And so yeah, just being in a place of gratitude. Alan oftentimes says, be content but never satisfied. So being content and being happy and having gratitude for where you are is super important, or else you'll never be happy in life. But you should always have that I don't know, the little guy inside of you that's just like striving for more. So I think that's a cool way to think about it, and that's a necessary way to think about the four fires, because if you don't ever think about how far you have come in the four fires, and you're just looking at, it's like, say you rate yourself a 5 or a 6 on the physical fire, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I'm not an 8 or a 9 or a 10, so I suck. But if you used to be a 2 and now you're a 5 or a 6, then you should be like, man, look at how far I've come, right? Anything else on the purpose fire you want to add in there? I'm like, maybe any other routines that you might have, or
I've tried to at work, when I've had my reviews with people recently, I've tried to pray for them before we leave the room, and that's actually been a really cool experience. And I haven't introduced it into every arena, and part of that is because I don't want it to become just something we do.
Yeah.
But I want something that is like kind of makes you pull your head back a little bit whenever hey, can I pray for you before you head out?
Mm-hmm.
Just being something that we do, and something that's is meaningful, and not that more quantity makes it less meaningful, but kind of people just having that, like, okay, like this is something that we do.
Yeah.
And it means something to us.
Mm-hmm.
And what we pray and when we pray. So
yeah, that's awesome, man. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and it's not that I always remember to do that, or that I do it whenever I feel as I should, but um, it's definitely been cool to see God show up even in those little moments.
Yeah.
Of conversations and prayers like that.
So what do you feel like your biggest takeaway or learning curve has been when it comes to the whole Four Fires framework and then trying to live into that ideal life?
Yeah, I think the way I said it at our entrepreneur summit was, I believe it was, no, it might have been a 30-day rut, but um, being a 4-dimensional man is not that hard. It's being a 4-dimensional man means doing these little things like stopping at the store before getting home and getting your wife flowers, or just going to the gym 2 to 4 times a week, or 6 or 7 if you're Jeff, and making sure you're eating decent during the week and just taking care of yourself. It's these little 10-minute to hour-long blocks of your life that really aren't that hard. You just got to go do them. And so, I said being a 4-dimensional man isn't that hard. It just takes intentionality. Intentionality is really, really hard. And so that would still be the case today. It's that, me leaving right here from work and getting to the gym by 7-ish, 6:30, 7-ish, and working out until 8. Still give me about 2 hours before I need to be asleep, and I'd still have time for dinner, and folding my clothes I still need to fold, and so I mean it's not that hard. It's just, man, I'd much rather go to trailer parking on Bay Street and grab the Monte Cristo or Monte Carlo sandwich there. That just sounds a lot better than going to the gym and folding my clothes. So ultimately, which one's gonna be better for me? Depending on the day, one might be more, might be better for me. My purpose fire, my spirit, I guess you could say, but. Just deciding not to stop by a trailer park on Bay Street to get a Monte Carlo sandwich every afternoon, knowing that it's probably not the best thing for you.
Yeah.
And that also, going to the gym every day and consuming your life with do instead of actually just slowing down and being content and having that relationship with God and that purpose in Him. It's just a very delicate juggling act that I don't know if we'll ever quite experience until we experience it.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Your quote about it's not that hard, but you have to be intentional, and being intentional is hard. It makes me think of I've heard this my whole life in church. I've heard pastors say it, and but it reminded me of this. They said, Christianity and giving your life to Christ is very simple, but it'll cost you your life. And so I feel like those two things kind of relate to each other. And heard it's actually Alan's mom one time said everything is connected to everything. And so I love drawing dots between things, because you made your comment about the whole Four Fires, and then I've heard that comment about Christianity and the purpose fire, and so it's kind of cool how things are always connected.
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, kind of like if you're if you're not healthy at work with your boundaries there, you're probably not gonna be healthy at home.
Right.
Probably not going to be healthy with God. You might not be healthy, with your body, and so it's all connected, and being on all 4 cylinders really, really does make you realize that it can be done. Like when you hit it, because you can hit it in moments, you can hit it in days or maybe weeks at times, and when you do it, it can happen.
Yeah, almost like God created all of the 4 areas, and He cares about all 4 of them. That's kind of crazy.
Right. Yeah, and that's where I think it's really cool, right? Is the 4 fires. It's God obviously wants us to have a relationship with Him. Mm-hmm. God obviously wants us to have a relationship with others around us, with our community, and He obviously wants us to work, right? Like Adam and Eve even worked in the garden, right? And so we all we're all gifted with things to do work. I think the one that's very interesting is, a lot of times in culture, I think we think of our bodies as bad. We think of it as sinful or might have you. But, Jesus, most of His healings were healing people's bodies.
Yeah.
There was something, His body broke and then rose again. I think there's something about our bodies that even in the resurrection, there's a piece of God in our bodies in a way. And I don't really know exactly what that means or what that looks like.
Yeah.
But I think It's just like he cares about our relationships, and he cares about our relationship with him, with others, and with what we do with our lives. I think he also cares about the way that we treat the temple that he's given us, and um, yeah, so I think there's a lot of cool aspects to that.
Yeah. So yeah, you just said about like sometimes we think about our bodies as wrong or sinful. I would say clearly that's not true. I would say that if you have that thought, that's a thought straight from Satan himself. But 1 Timothy 4:8, I actually heard this verse recently because I was listening to a podcast called the 4:8. I think it's 4:8 Man podcast. It's I think his name's Christian Huff. I think it's Sadie Robertson or Sadie Huff's husband. But his whole podcast is about physical fitness and living a godly life. And 1 Timothy 4:8 is the verse that he based it off of, and it says, "For physical training is of some value, but godliness has value for all things, holding promise for both the present life and the life to come." There's a guy that I know who doesn't think that the way that we treat our bodies is important. He just thinks that his relationship with God is the only thing that's important, and his body he can do whatever with his body that he wants to. And unfortunately, the part of me that doesn't like confrontation, and this person is older than me, so I felt I guess unworthy to kind of call him out, because I felt like, dude, man, and I was like, I feel like you're misleading people, and that's what my heart was telling me, but I didn't have the courage to say anything to the guy. But I would definitely say, like Paul writes, that physical training is of some value. So if you're only focused on physical training and you're not caring about godliness, then that's a problem. But physical training is of some value, and God gave us our body, and our bodies are beautiful, and it's the way that we move around on earth, and it's the way that we live our life and have fun with people and make memories. And so I think taking care of our bodies, the Bible says our body is a temple, and so I definitely think it's important. All four areas. I think God, like I said, God created the four areas. It's not like Alan says that the four fires was just him uncovering what's always been there and putting it together. It's not, he didn't create anything. And so the four fires, the four areas are something that God created. And I think that they're all good, and they all can be achieved with intentionality, but intentionality is hard. So we're both 22. No, I'm 23. You're 22, right?
So we're turning 23 next month, baby.
Okay. All right. So we'll call it. We'll say we're both 23. If you were talking to another 23-year-old or somebody younger than us, how much would you stress the importance of the four fires this early in life, or do you feel like we could have waited and we would have been fine? What would be your advice to somebody our age or younger?
Yeah, I mean, you can wait and catch up with with whatever areas of your life, but I mean, to be different, you got to do different, and no one's doing this at the age that we're at except for me and you. I mean, at least we're calling it what we're calling it, I guess.
Right.
Hopefully we know other people are striving for the same things that I named here before. But, we're just going to be different because we've got, as I think Alan said one time, our greatest resource that we have that no one else does that's older than us is time. It's our greatest resource.
Yep.
We can perfect our fires. We can have a foundation in our families, and in our jobs, that in our careers that we've started, to have good boundaries now, in our families to have good habits with our wives and our kids.
Yeah.
To, have good habits in the gym while we can still see the results much quicker. Same thing in our craft. That's I'd say professionally with our craft. That's going to take some more time, but already striving for something and growing in something, allocating time to it. Once we figure out what that craft is, or we find our sweet spot, we've already gotten in the habit of allocating, or not allocating that time to it. So, yeah, I would just say, I mean, it's kind of getting to where you want to be sooner rather than figuring it out later.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
If I'm not, in a 4-fire zone, I'm wishing I was, because I know what it feels like. And I know what it looks like.
Yep.
I mean, I know who I want to be for my future spouse. I know who I want to be for my kids. I know who I want to be for my boss. I know who I want to be for the people who work under me.
Mm-hmm.
I know who I want to be for God, and I know who I want to be for me. And that's ultimately what it comes down to. Is that 4 fires philosophy.
Yeah. No, that's awesome. Yeah, I fully agree. Well, before we go, I wanted to give a little sneak peek about something that the 4 Fires has coming soon, and that is the 4 Fires Tribe. This is going to be an online community for men of all ages. It's going to be on a network, an app called Mighty Networks. There's going to be discussion boards for all the 4 Fires, where you can hear from all different men in different stages of life and what they're going through. You'll get access to special events that the 4 Fires is planning. There'll be monthly live calls that you can join in on. They're like a conference Zoom call. And ultimately what we're going for with this online community is to have a one-stop shop for everything 4 Fires. So there'll be course materials, all kinds of 4 Fires resources for you to have access to. And the biggest part that will bring a lot of value is you'll be put in a quad, is what we're going to call it, which is a group of 4 men. So you and 3 other men will be put in your own private group where you have the option to meet once a month over live Zoom call within the network, within the app, so that you guys can have accountability and community. And so all in all, the 4 Fires community, you've got a lot to look forward to. So that's coming soon. There'll be more information about that in an upcoming podcast. And if you'd like to be on the email list to get first updates of when that is going to launch, and so that you can have first dibs on one of the spots to be in the tribe, send an email to me at jeff@leadadvisors.org, and I'll get you put on the list so that you get all of the first updates as they come out. Mason, I appreciate you taking the time to meet with me this afternoon. And is any other final thoughts?
I appreciate your time. Appreciate the opportunity. Appreciate you and Alan, and looking forward to the growth alongside you guys.
Well, me too. With that being said, stay tuned for the next episode, and go live intentionally. And we'll see you on the next episode of the 4 Fires podcast.